Thanks, Mike. Okay, so this was the scene in the Highlands for 2 weekends in a row. Hundreds filling Bardstown Road with fights breaking out, people breaking windows, damaging cars.
Some business owners are changing their hours to close earlier. The crowd this past weekend grew so fast, LMPD called in a rapid response team. We've covered this story all week, and we want to hear from LMPD Chief Paul Humphrey about what more LMPD plans to do to stop these takeovers. So thanks for joining us this morning.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so what's the plan for this weekend to prevent something like this from happening again? I know you and the mayor were out talking with business owners yesterday, and
well, that's exactly the thing. A lot of people are frustrated by this. You have, just a handful of people, in all honesty, that can't follow the rules. And so we want to make sure that it's a safe environment for people to have fun. People need to be able to go out on weekends, but they also need to be respectful of the neighborhood, be respectful of each other. If you can't go out without fighting, then we'll give you a different place to stay. But we are going to be much more proactive and much more visible early in the night and try to prevent those problems from happening instead of having to respond to them after the fact.
how close are you monitoring social media where maybe they're getting online and organizing these things? It's probably a constant challenge. So are you guys keeping tabs on that? Because we see the posts after.
Right, and social media and just modern communication is a constant challenge because it can turn something from 15 or 20 people into several hundred in a matter of minutes. And so that's something that we always pay attention to and have to be aware of.
We've seen things like this happen elsewhere too, down at the waterfront Big Four Bridge, Kentucky State Fair. Any other efforts to add officers in other places as we,
So right now
this
seems like a Highland specific problem, right. But we know we've had issues in other areas that pop up like this, whether it's street racing or the waterfront. So when you think about our crime plan that we put out, we talk about data responsive policing, and that's exactly what this is. It's understanding that we have a short-term problem. How are we going to move resources around in order to deal with that problem? So whether we have an issue in the Highlands on Bardstown Road, or it moves somewhere else, or there's a different type of issue, we're prepared to move those resources around and deal with it appropriately wherever it happens.
And we've seen a lot of teenagers involved in these street takeovers, teen crime in particular. How do you address that? Because I know it's a different challenge.
It is a different challenge when you're dealing with people that are under 18. But the fact of the matter is that our number one job is to keep people safe. And so what do we have to do regardless of age, we're going to make sure that we take care of that problem so that nobody gets hurt.
We asked some of our viewers what they would like to ask you. So I want to read a couple of our questions here. This is from Nick. And it's about street racing. He says, any recent changes to street racing laws? I've seen a bunch of street racers running through the streets of Louisville.
No, so we haven't had any legal updates on the street racing laws coming out of legislation in Frankfurt. But, I think there have been complaints about street racing, but the problem that we had last year, we just don't have anymore. And that's because we adjusted our tactics and started dealing with that problem more forcefully. And so that's what we plan to do with some of these other issues that we find right now.
And we had several people complain about a lack of police presence when it comes to traffic violations, like drivers running red lights and stop signs. Do you have enough officers to enforce these kinds of incidents?
Right, everybody wants that enforced until it's them that gets caught. But so one of the things that we've talked about is automated enforcement. I think this came up in detail at the council meeting on our budget, and whether or not there can be some movement in Frankfurt to push for legislation on automated enforcement of some of the traffic regulations. And so we're hoping that we can get some movement on that to help supplement some of that enforcement action and get rid of some of that type of behavior.
The officer shortage is something we've covered for a couple of years now. This is from Lulu, who says, do you have any plans to add more detectives to the cold case department with over 700 unsolved cases and only 2 detectives? Seems like more needs to be done within LMPD. Of course, every family is looking for resolution in their case, and the challenge is you've been up against a lot these last couple of years with officer shortage and then responding to just violent crime.
Yeah, and we talk about the officer shortage, but I'm never going to use that as an excuse, right? So we have what we have, and we need to take those resources and manage them the best way we can. And so when it comes to cold case homicides, that's a really sad situation, considering that our goal in those situations is to give someone, justice for their loved one and bring closure. And so when we can't do that over an extended time, we understand the pain that those families feel. That being said, we do have 2 detectives sworn and another civilian detective that are working on those cases. And I think last year, we cleared 3 cold cases, which is a pretty good rate considering the amount that we have. And so we want to continue to make sure that we work those cases so that we can bring the closure to those families.
And we had Chad Michael ask this, from your perspective, Chief, what is the #1 thing the community can do and the #1 thing that officers can do to help bridge the gap and build a better partnership between the two?
Well, I'll speak from the officer perspective. I think one of the things that we can do better, and this has been something that, we've been preached to my entire career, is how we talk to people. I think most people, when people show them respect and we explain what we're doing, people can accept it. Even if they don't like it, they can usually accept it. And so we can do a much better job of explaining what we do to people. That's why I do things like this, is so that the public understands a little bit better what the police are doing and why. And from the community perspective, we seek that interaction. So whether it's about a crime that's occurred, a crime that's about to occur, or just a normal day-to-day interaction, talk to the police. We want to know what's going on in your community, what's going on in your neighborhood, so that we can help.
Police reform, still a hot topic. It was the subject in Metro Council this week, talking about how to implement the reforms that were outlined by the DOJ. We know the consent decree is no more. So how do you appease those who are worried without some kind of federal oversight that there will be real change within LMPD?
Right, and I think that's one of the challenges that we have, is how do we show people the change that we've had and the progress that we've made, because it is a challenge, because this is not the same agency that it was 5 years ago. We don't live in 2020 and we don't plan on going back to 2020. And so we want the public to be able to move forward with us. And so how we communicate the things that we're doing is going to be very important going forward. But that's also why we continue forward with a monitor, so that there is a third party that can verify to the public that we are actually doing what we say we do. I think the public deserves that kind of verification, but I also think that this is something we can take advantage of, is that we know that everybody was frustrated with how negotiations went and how the investigation took 2+ years and another year or so for negotiations. Well, take that bureaucracy of the Department of Justice that slowed that down, and let's actually make some speedy, meaningful change that will be sustainable over time. And we can now do that independently with some verification to the public that it's being done.
And you're now about a year into the new job as chief. I guess no longer new, it's a year.
Yeah,
how would you summarize this past year, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, it's been simultaneously better and worse than I thought it would be, but the good has far outweighed the bad. I am extremely surprised and excited about the amount of support that we've gotten. And I know people say stuff to me all the time, and I know it's not directed to me. It's really about the police department, about the support that they have for me, but really they're talking about how they want to see their police department succeed, and they want to have a police department in a city that they're proud of. And so it's been pretty exciting to feel that support. Now, I just wish that officers could feel the amount of support that I do, and I hope they understand how much the community actually wants them to succeed, and it really appreciates the job that they do. It's been pretty awesome, especially for a job that I didn't apply for.
How do you like U of L and Miami in the Super Regionals today?
I'm super excited. I wish I was going to be able to go out there, but I've been there twice when they clinched berth to Omaha. It's an awesome experience. My dad played baseball at U of L.
Well, there you go.
So I get pretty excited, and we go out there to a lot of the games.
L's up.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
Chief. Thank you for your time and addressing just a wide variety of topics. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it.
Come
Thanks for
back
having me.
anytime.
Definitely.